Hi, welcome to School of Digital Media and Communication at Mahindra University's another episode of Ungraded, a podcast with professionals from the media industry. Today we have a very special guest, Seshasaye, who's worked over 30 years in the media sphere, right from Disney, theme parks, media, film, TV, and he's been an ex-CEO of Ramoji Film City and has now launched his own studios called Mast Studios. I know you're a big fan of Telugu films, and having seen the evolution of the Telugu film industry, where do you see it happening over the next, what are the big changes that you've seen over the past 5 to 10 years, and where do you see it going?
I think the focus is primarily on great storytelling now, right? And that ambition probably has come from the fact that everyone realizes the market is much bigger than the two states that we have here that are Telugu speaking. That's one. And second is now we believe in that universal principles of storytelling and universal values of storytelling. And the ambition has also gone to the extent of saying, all right, why can't we take it to the world and not just be limited to the Hindi diaspora, if you may, right? So I think bigger, better, larger than life, and at the same time, experimental, small, beautiful stories. These are things that were done off and on in the past, but now there is a concerted effort towards making certain kinds of films, having a certain kind of brand building around it. There is a certain amount of focus around franchise building or IP building as well. So there is enough inspiration as well in the industry today if you look around, both from a talent standpoint, from a production house standpoint, and so on. The third one I think is, given the fact that Telugu films are today the go-to place for Indian cinema, if you may, then there's a lot more funding and opportunity that's also come in, and that's important because our industry needed that kind of presence and that kind of showcasing. So I think the time has come where a lot more talent from smaller towns and smaller cities, and even in places like Vizag and Hyderabad, people have started working independently or with studios or as collaborators and creating content which is actually now being watched, viewed both on social platforms and also on OTT and cinema. So a lot of democratization in the industry has actually been utilized very well by the Telugu film industry. That's my view.
Yeah, so technology has played the enabling part.
So technology, I'm not sure has played the enabling part as much as the ambition to make the best that's possible in a certain sphere. So for example, if someone could make that film for 100 crores, they are willing to now stretch it and make it at 150 crores. Earlier those resources were either questioned or didn't exist.
Right.
But now there is willingness because you have seen or you have tasted success.
Right.
And hence a lot more people are open to the idea of saying, why not do this?
Why not? I want to add a similar story parallelly. I was in discussion with one of the biggest Telugu producers, and he brought me in not for his regular films, which are doing fantastic, but for an animation project. And he told me that the performance of two films, one is Mahavatar Narasimha, which obviously has cultural backing, etc. And of course, the right product at the right time, so on and so forth. But the second one was a surprise. The Demon Slayer, dubbed in Telugu.
Yeah.
It was running houseful morning shows in all B and C towns, in Warangal, Khammam, etc.
Yeah.
And so much that a AAA film couldn't get slots. And it's a cultural, it's like a shock that, that people are consuming animation. Now, Demon Slayer is an adult theme in the sense that it's got a lot of violence, ultra-violence. But the very fact that people are so open to animation was a shock to them. That suddenly they are now thinking of 100 crore budget. It does not shock them anymore. They don't laugh you out of the room for 100 crores. over 3 years. Again,
Animated film, yeah.
film. So that's been very interesting. Yeah.
I feel, one should not ignore the whole concept of IP and franchise. So when you talk of Narsimha, as much as we don't see it as a franchise, it is a IP, because even though it's a free IP, it is an IP.
It is an IP, yeah.
Right? So Ramayana and Mahabharata are the biggest IP that we have in this country. And everyone can tell their own rendition of that story. So to me, having that kind of a gumption to say, okay, now I'm open to making big films is great. But at the same time, one should be very careful in the kind of topics and stories one wants to tell in animation, because I believe this is that early years of animation where no one should suddenly get dismayed by the fact that, oh, this didn't do well. We put in so much money and effort and it didn't do well. So picking the right stories by, the studios and filmmakers at this stage of growing animation in our country, I think would play a key role in how this industry grows.
It's quite interesting that animation goes through these booms and busts simply because one film does well and the follow-ups are not able to keep up.
Right.
So this time, one positive thing is the audience itself has evolved so much. And as you were talking in your talks, that they're exposed and the way they consume content around the world, including animation content, that they're ready for a cinematic animation experience too.
Somehow I find this entire thing a myth that people have evolved, right? I think filmmakers have evolved. The community was always ready for great storytelling. Now, whether you tell that story through any format,
right.
There is willingness for a great story that will uplift me when I sit in a cinema or in front of a screen. So give me that uplifting experience. Make me feel that tomorrow is going to be better than today. I'm willing to be in any place.
Oh, great. Yeah.
So that's how audiences are. So I don't think there is any evolution of audience as much as evolution of storytellers.
Storytellers, yeah. That ties in fact, to my second question, where I was asking about Indian cinema itself and Indian filmmakers and film producers, that now that they are getting the confidence, and they're also getting the technical expertise of making much larger productions.
Yeah.
What is it from a storytelling aspect that they now should keep in mind as they are trying to reach to a global audience?
See, the point is you don't make films or you don't start filming or creating a film saying, I want to tell this story to Indonesians and Chinese and Japanese and French and the Americans. You don't start with that. You start with great stories. You build great characters within that, within a world that you have imagined or existing. People relate to stories. Now, the second thing is stories need to essentially have that universal value or, something that people anywhere in the world can relate to. No culture in the world tells you to go and slap your elders. Right? So you cannot call that your culture. So it's a basic human value or that we've all grown up with, be it Americans or Indians or anyone. But then there are certain idioms which are very unique to your region and your market. So when you're telling that story, you need to have that kind of a thinking on storyboard level itself to understand whether this story will be understood by a 10-year-old kid sitting in any of these other countries. Right. If he can, then yes, you can make that. For example, who's to tell that a mouse called Mickey Mouse is American? An Indian kid sitting in Vizag can think that Mickey Mouse is as much a neighbor as any other character. So, that's fundamentally how it should be, that your characters and your stories need to happen in places that I can relate to or I can understand. Those are the kind of stories we all relate to. So look at how anime connects with an entire generation of kids today. Yeah. But back when I was growing up, the same anime existed, but somehow there were no takers. So over a period in time, it was presented in the way that people would consume in the right place, right environment, and so on. And then suddenly it got its following.
Great. if one of the students from Mahindra University has to come and pitch an animation or a film project to Mast Studios, let's say in 3-4 months' time, what are you looking for?
So there are two things that we do at Mast Studios, right? One, we are looking at developing original IP, right? Stories that can travel beyond the screen to theme parks, to consumer products, and so on and so forth. So there's a life for animated content. That's how we see it, and we believe in the business of animation from that standpoint. The second aspect in that is your stories need to bring families together towards a certain value, which is what Mast Studio is all about. We believe in the core purpose of bringing families together. Every age group should feel entertained. So it cannot be that this content is made for 6-year-olds and not 60-year-olds. So everyone in the family should be able to enjoy it. And that's why I give examples like The Lion King or Frozen or any of these stories. Every member of your family can sit and have a good time watching that content. So those are the kind of stories we are always looking at.
Great. The fourth question is more on the creative process. A lot of students, I notice, get very excited about certain ideas because when the idea comes in the beginning, it's a high, right? A creative high. But then there is a massive aspect of the creative process where there's much more disciplined work.
Yeah.
Some students drop out at that point because they feel there's too much drudgery.
Right.
Sometimes the blank page stares back at you or blank screen.
Yeah.
What any advice on how to get through it?
There was a time when, multi-plane cameras used to be the ones that would make animated content. That's how Walt Disney made his first set of animation content. Till, even when you think of how we moved from that to the CG animated content today and now to AI, things have become simpler and simpler. But if a student is hyper-focused on technology and not really on story or what he or she believes in telling the world, then there will always be that obstruction. But the usual trick that I tell everyone is to sit in a corner and start asking questions around what if. And it can go in multiple directions. What if we were not sitting in this studio right now? What if we were on the beach of Phuket and we were having the same conversation? And then suddenly the mindset kind of shifts towards a direction that the brain should go. Right. So those are some simple tricks that I've seen people use. I've used myself, and it seems to work.
Right. It's almost like you not relax that creative mind or creative aspect of your brain, and give it some kind of unusual feedback.
Yeah, I think we take ourselves too seriously as storytellers and filmmakers. The fact is, we are here in the fun business. Let's first be seen as having fun. All right, and if we are not having fun, then we can guarantee that the audiences are not having fun. So it's extremely important that each individual is actually enjoying the process of storytelling. Otherwise, you should be doing something else. If I enjoyed being an astronaut, then that's what I should have been doing.
The joy, right? That's the key.
Yeah.
Last question.
Sure.
Any recent pleasant surprise from any form of media, whether books or movies or animation, that you've seen or experienced recently? Any pleasant surprise?
No, I've always found comedy to be a very difficult genre to manage, especially from a writing standpoint and then bringing it on screen. The other good thing about comedy is that you can actually make it at a very low cost. And there was this film called Sue from So that came last year. I was blown by it. Everyone in the cinema was clapping for it, laughing at it. I myself had a great time watching that film. A film that was made at a really low, small budget. Right. But it played to its strength, which was really comedy and the script. And it just connected with a whole generation that was going to cinemas after a long time. and I would consider it as one of the best comedies that was made in the last 2 decades. In fact, blown by it, and it's done phenomenally well, which is great, because whenever money circulates in the industry, everyone should be happy.
Yeah, totally. Comedy is the hardest, and if someone is able to get it, we should all be very appreciative of it.
True.
And that ends our podcast, Sesha.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you so much. It was a great pleasure to have Seshasaye Kanthamraju today, and I hope to interact with you very soon.